So welcome to our next episode in Getting Intimate with Anto Gonzalez. And in this episode, now we'll be talking about the postponement of the UFL. Perhaps you could walk us through what happened with that. Maybe you have a bit more inside information in terms of the situation there. But the UFL final is now scheduled to be after the Suzuki Cup, which will be a long break between the semi-finals and the final. How much of a difference does that make for the club teams?
I think it's difficult for the club teams. Of course, in terms of preparation, before you start a competition, you have, of course, your pre-season plan, your in-season plan, and then you base your plan on the scheduling of the games. And when there's a glitch in the schedule, then you have to make necessary adjustments. So for the teams and for the coaches of the UFL teams, it's difficult, but I think it's manageable. And for the ASCAL's players, I think for me it's beneficial to the ASCAL's players. I mean, all these postponements are after all for the benefit of the ASCAL players. So personally, I think that maybe in the future, there should just have better coordination between the UFL and the PFF in terms of scheduling matches and checking on the schedule of the ASCAL's training camps or friendly matches. So maybe moving forward, that's what they need to do.
Because it was originally scheduled that the final would be on the 15th of November, but when Singapore were playing in Cebu, of course that had to be shifted. Why do you think they've postponed it until after the Suzuki Cup? Perhaps they could have shortened it and had a final before, or even just a few days in between. Why postpone it until after the Suzuki Cup, with the first game being the 24th of November? There's quite a bit of a break between the 15th and 24th. Could they have had it in between?
Apparently, the PFF didn't want the game to push through in between those dates, so the ASCAL players could focus on their Suzuki Cup preparations. Of course, injuries might happen, and it's very close to the Suzuki Cup, so recovery might be impossible already. And maybe also they're considering the tight schedule that the ASCALs have had already, and then they will play through with its semi-final or final matches. It's gonna be difficult for the ASCAL's players physically.
Definitely. And how much of an effect could that also have had? I mean, you were mentioning before off camera about how tired some of the players were coming back from Cebu to play the semi-final. So how much of an effect would it have had if they had played the final and then had to go across to Thailand?
It's physically draining. Of course, there's a lot of pressure for the players to really play their best since it's the finals. And after, sometimes it's the mentality of the players that after a successful campaign, after the end of the season, their mentality would tend to relax a bit. They would try to slack off, and we don't want that to happen with our players. So we want them to remain mentally fresh, physically fresh for the Suzuki Cup.
Because they're just opening the schedule here, and the semi-finals, if the Philippines manage to get through, will be on the 8th or 9th, and the 12th and 13th, depending on if they're top or second. And then the finals are even later on. So it could be quite a while before that's finished. But as a player, which would you prefer, to win the UFL Cup with the club or to win the Suzuki Cup with the country?
Of course, to win the Suzuki Cup with the country. It's our choice.
Excellent. But it seems like there is still the problem of the coordination, the cooperation between the UFL and the ASCALs. Given that the ASCALs knew that November 15 was the date for the final of the UFL, they could have had it on the 20th. I think Thailand's last game was will be tomorrow, I believe, or they've just finished it like a couple of days ago, so they could have scheduled it afterwards, or stick to FIFA international dates. Are you hopeful in the future then? How much would it mean to Philippine football if those schedules can be fixed, if the UFL and the ASCALs can work together? Because we do know there's been problems between the two.
With what's happening, those who are greatly affected are number one the teams in with their preparations, and of course the fans as well.
Yeah.
So it's important for the PFF and the UFL to really coordinate their schedules so as to avoid like these types of reorganizing schedules or matches. Of course, we have to think about the fans as well because they make the UFL successful. So that's very important. We cannot just always prioritize and based our decisions solely for the benefit of the ASCAL's players.
Yeah.
If we can avoid making decisions like that will affect the other parties involved, then we have to make it. We have to prepare for that.
And how much does the UFL mean to Philippine football now? Do you think it's the long-term viability of football needs that league system? Or is it still the ASCAL should take the priority and the players should train for that? How much does the UFL now mean?
For me personally, the UFL is very important. A lot of kids follow UFL clubs already, and that's a starting point to get kids into football. They need to aspire for something big, and UFL is next to the ASCALs, and only very few players can get to the ASCALs. But in the UFL, a lot of more players can play in. And of course, the success of your grassroots also is dependent with the success of the club competition. And of course also with your national team. But a very stable local or domestic league is necessary to uplift your grassroots, to attract more youngsters to play the sport, and also at the same time to strengthen your national team.
Absolutely. And we do hope the UFL and the PFF can sort out the problems with the scheduling. Fortunately, it's not as bad as the last league. We must notice the progress that's been happening with that. So that's a positive to take out of that. Looking at the dates, we've got the games on the 24th, 27th, 30th of December in the group stage if the Philippines qualify. Then the semi-finals will be on the 8th, 9th, 12th, 13th for the two legs. And then the finals will be all the way in 19th and 22nd of December. So it could be a while before we have the final. So we do hope for the league and for the future of the UFL and the ASCALs. Both can work hand in hand to promote Philippine football. To find out when that is, we'll send you all the updates if you follow us. To find out all those news about Philippine football, follow us at FTW Sports.